So I welcome you all in today's session of hands-on Python programming, and in today's session we are going to discuss about tuple data type. Okay, so I hope slides are visible to all of you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So as we have discussed that we have, okay, uh, s- few data types in Python programming that we call actually sequence data types. Okay, so it means we can store a sequence of elements in those data types, so in which we have a string, list, tuples, dictionaries. Also dictionary is actually type of mapping. So list, string, list, tuples. Okay, so these are sequence data types in which we can store a sequence of elements, and in which we have tuple. So we will start with the basics of tuple. Like a tuple is an ordered sequence. Ordered sequence means its order will be important. It means first element will be identified with a particular index number. Okay, so index number will be used to access the elements of a tuple. Okay, so that's why we are calling it ordered. So ordered sequence means there are a number of elements, that's why we call it sequence. So sequence of elements of different data types such as integer, float, string, list, or even a tuple. So that is an important point that we have to keep in mind. So in a tuple, okay, we can keep elements of different data types. It means first may be integer, second may be integer, but third you can put float. Okay, fourth you can put string. So different data types also you can take, okay, as elements of a tuple. And elements of a tuple are enclosed in parentheses. It means we will use these round brackets, okay, for tuples, and are separated by commas. So and are separated by commas means we will put commas, okay, to separate the elements of a tuple. So till this point only one thing you will find that will be different from list is that for creating a tuple we will use round brackets, okay, parentheses, but for list we use square brackets. Okay, but one more thing that is different, okay, that is different if you will compare it with list, that tuples tuple cannot be more elements cannot be added to tuples. Okay, it means if you have created a tuple, then you can't change the elements of a tuple. Element wise changing you can't do, and more elements after creation you can't change or you can't add to a tuple. Okay, so that we will see in with the help of programming also. But before that we will go to this third point, that is like list and string elements of a tuple can be accessed using index values. It means same, we can use index value 0 for first element and 1 for second element. So same index number we can use, okay, for accessing elements of a tuple. So we will take an example to create a tuple. Okay, so first of all we will go to our Jupyter notebook, and there we will do our Python programming. So what we are going to do here, we will use this thing like a new cell. We will take first. Okay, so here we are going to create a tuple like tuple 1. Okay, and in tuple 1 we can write, let me admit. Okay, so in tuple 1 we can take values like 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4 comma 5. So all these will be elements of a tuple. Even we can take float values also. Okay, but here we are taking 5 integers in tuple 1. So now we will check this type of tuple 1. Okay, so this is of class tuple. Okay, so like this you can create tuple. So syntax is very easy. If you want to create some tuple, any tuple, then what you have to do, simply within parentheses you have to write the elements. Okay, elements will be separated by comma. So that was about tuple. Now if you want to access a particular element of this tuple, for example, you want to access this first element, then you will write simply, I will take a break of only 1 minute, okay? So what I was telling simply, I hope my screen is visible. So if you want to, I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So if you will write like this tuple 1, and then within braces if you will write 0, okay, then you will get 1, okay. So why you are getting 1? Because index number is 0 for this first element, okay. Same if you want to print this 5, then it will be having index number 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we will write tuple 1, and then we will write 4, okay. So that will give you last element. So like that we can go same positive indexing and negative indexing, okay, that we followed for a string and even for list. So those indexing, positive
Sir, why,
indexing. Hmm,
sir,
hmm,
why
hmm.
tuple, sir? Why the name, the command name is tuple? Uh,
Okay,
we we studied the string and list.
list
So
also.
what
Okay,
is the meaning of this?
so I am coming to that point. The tuple means if you want to have a sequence of elements, okay, that you can't change after creation. For example, in list you can add new elements, okay, but in tuple what you can do, you can't add new elements. For example, if we have, and we can't use append function, we can't use insert function, so these type of things will not be allowed in tuple, okay. So that's why tuple is different from list, you can say, okay. So in a string you will, if you will compare it with a string, so in strings we put only text values, okay, only character values. But if you will compare it with list, you will find that okay, in list also we can store elements of different data types. In tuple also we can store elements of different data types. But the basic difference between list and tuple is that we can add new element to a list, but we can't add any new element to a tuple already if we have already created it. For example, if we will just try to do this thing with the help of programming. Like if we have list 1 and in list 1 if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, these elements are there. And then if you will try to do list 1 dot append, or first of all let me show you the elements of list 1. Of course it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now what I am going to do, that list 1 dot append, and then if I want to append a new element, for example 6 in that list 1, then after that append function we can check that what we have in list 1. So in list 1 this 6 will be appended, 6 will be added at the end, okay. So that you got. After that if we will try to add, for example, tuple 1, what we have in tuple 1, same 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But if you will try to add it with the help of this append function, so that is not allowed actually. So of course you will be getting some error, okay. So attribute error, tuple object has no attribute append, okay. So append you can't use with tuple, because actually you can't add any element, any new element, okay, any new element to a already created tuple. So that is the basic difference. So if you are sure that about the elements, that only these elements will be there, okay, throughout your program, then only you should use tuple. Or if you want to use a data type where you don't want to add elements, it means elements are fixed, you know this, okay, then only you will use tuple. Okay, so if you want to use a data structure or data type where you want don't want to change anything in elements, okay, so even you can't add new elements, okay, you can't add new elements in tuple, and you can't change a particular element of a tuple. So these 2 points are important that you have to keep in mind. In lists you can change element wise, so a particular element of a list you can change, okay, and one new element, if there is a new element you want to add in a list, that you can do. But in tuple you can't add new element, okay, or if you want to change a particular element, that is also not allowed in tuple. So that is the basic difference between list and tuple. Okay, and if you will ask that why we are using this word tuple, so actually tuple represents a record. It means there is a record and you want to keep as it is, you want to keep as it is. It means you are sure that these elements or these values are not going to be changed. That's why this tuple word has been used. Okay, but main thing is that you have to keep in mind that lists elements can be changed, new element can be added, but in tuples element wise you can't change and a new element you can't add. Okay, that is the basic difference. So let me try to show you that if you will try to in list you can do as we have discussed in list session on list also, that if you have a list and if you want to, for example, change a particular element, for example if we are going to put is as 2 or sorry 10. Okay, so on second index we want to put this value 10, so that you can do easily. After that if you will check list 1 elements, then you will get that 10 will be there at index number 2. Okay, but in tuple that is not allowed actually. So in tuple 1 if you will do like this, 2 is equal to 10, then of course you will get error. Okay, so type error. Tuple object does not support item assignment. It means item wise, element wise you can't change, okay, in tuple. So that is the basic difference. And this question has been is asked in general if you will go for Python programming interview at the basic level. Okay, so if they will be asking few basic things about Python programming from list and tuple topics, then of course they will ask that what is difference between list and tuple. And as you know that if we can't change element wise, if we can't change a particular element of a data type, it means it is immutable. It is immutable. So tuple is immutable data type. So I hope you got these points till now. Or if you have any confusion you may ask.
No, sir.
Okay, so the we have another example like first in tuple 2. So in tuple 2 what we have, let me show you that in tuple 2 what we have. First element is economics. Okay, so it means it is an string, it is a string. Next is integer 87, then accountancy, it is a string. 89.6, it is a float. Okay, so different data types you can use for elements. Okay, so that will also work, there will be no issue in tuple 2. So that you can do for list also, you can create this type of list also. Okay, so that will also be working for lists. For example list 2 if you want to create. Okay, so that you can do easily, there will be no problem. But the thing is that in list you can change elements, you can add new element, but in tuple you can't change element wise particular element, and you cannot add a new element. Okay, that is the basic difference. So we can create this type of list also where you can use different data types for different elements. Okay, so this was the basic thing. Okay, or basic points about tuple. Next thing is that in our tuple you can use a list as an element. Okay, even you can use a tuple also within a tuple. Okay, so let me show you that if you want to create a tuple, for example tuple 3 where we will have, for example 1 comma 2, and next element will be 10 comma 20. So this 10 comma 20 is a list actually, because you are writing it within square brackets. So this is a list, and that will be third element of this tuple. Okay, so there will be no issue in that. So you can use a list as an element in of a tuple, and even you can use a tuple within a tuple. Okay, so for that we are going to take example. The tuple 4 is something like 1 comma 2 comma 3, and then after that we will use a tuple like 10 comma 20 comma 30. So this 10 comma 20 comma 30 is a tuple, okay, that is an element of a tuple of another tuple, that is tuple 4. Okay, so like that also we can do, and you can create a tuple like this. Okay, so next we will go to a point that if you want to create a tuple which will have only a single element, okay, then it may be possible that you will be writing like this: tuple 5 is equal to only one element. For example, 10 we want to use. Okay, if you want to keep only one element like 10, then if you will write like this, that tuple 5 is equal to 10 within parentheses, if you are writing, then let me tell you that it will not be treated as a tuple. Okay, for a single element also you have to keep a comma, okay, here. So if you are not going to keep a comma here or use a comma here, then actually it will be treated as an integer. So let me show you that if you will not write this comma, then if you will check the type of tuple 5, so that is int. Why? Because this will be treated as integer if you will not write comma. Okay, but if you are going to use it like, so for example, if we will use like tuple 6 and then 10 comma, okay, after that you don't need to write anything. But if you have a single element even, then also you have to use comma. So like that you will write, then you can check the type of tuple 6. Okay, this is a tuple now. Okay, so that is a point that you have to keep in mind, that for a single element tuple also you have to put comma after that element within parentheses. Next point is that correct way of assigning single element of tuple, that I told you that you should use comma, okay, even if you have single element. A sequence without parentheses is treated as tuple by default. Okay, now there is one another point, that if you are not going to use this for example tuple 7, if we are going to create, then if we want to put these elements like 15 comma 25 comma 35, okay, so if you are going to write like this, of course this will be a tuple. But if we will not use this parentheses, then what it will be? If we will assign these three values, okay, directly without parentheses, then also it will be treated as a tuple. Okay, so let me show you the type of this tuple 7. Okay, so these are few basic points, very minute points that you have to keep in mind. Okay, so tuple 7 is a tuple. Okay, so if you will not use parentheses, then also it will be treated as a tuple. Then we will talk about accessing elements in a tuple. So how we can access with this index number? For example, first element, if you want to access, then you will use this index number of first element, that will be 0. Okay, so like that you can use. And same thing, if you will use any index that is out of range, for example, let me check that what we have in tuple 1. In tuple 1 we have 1 2 3 4 5. It means index number will be 0 1 2 3 4. So if we will use tuple 1 index number 0, so of course it will give first element. And if we will write like this, and we will use index number 4, so for that you will get that last element. Okay, but if you will use, for example, tuple 1, and then in index number if you are going to write for example 8, because we don't have any element at index number 8, because last will be 4, index number 4 will be the last one. So if you will write like this, then of course you will get an error, that will be index error. So you have to keep in mind that which type of error you are getting actually. So that will be error related to index, that's why it will be index error. So tuple index out of range, it means you are using an index that is out of range, because range will be what, for this tuple it will be 0 to 4. Okay, so that index only you can use. And same things that we discussed about list, like you can use negative indexing also, like tuple 1, and then if you will use -1, so for -1 it will print which element, last element. Okay, so tuple 1 of -1, so it will print -5. And if you will use like tuple 1 of -5, so what will be the result for tuple 1 of index number -5? Just check on your Python editor what you will get for tuple 1 at index number -5. Just check on your Python editor. If you have this tuple 1 in which you have elements 1 2 3 4 5, then what you will get for tuple 1 of index number -5?
1.
So -5, so -5 will be 1. Why? Because it will be going like, it will be for 5 in negative indexing. For 5 the index will be -1, for 4 it will be -2, then -3, then -4, then -5. It means last one will be -5, so that will be, that you will get, okay, 1 you will get. Okay, so negative indexing we can follow. And same, you can use any expression that will be evaluated to an integer, like 1 plus 4 you can use. Okay, but that should be within range. Okay, so the things that we discussed regarding string and list, okay, so same type of things are there. So I am going to move to the point, that is tuple is immutable, that I told you, that a particular element of a tuple, after creating a tuple, you can't change a particular element of a tuple. Like if we have 1 2 3 4 5, and if you want to change element at index number 4 to 10, so that will not be allowed. Okay, actually, okay, that will not be allowed. So that is not allowed, element wise you can't change a particular element of a tuple, you can't change. That's why tuple is called immutable. That is why tuple is called immutable. So let me tell you the point, that which data types are immutable. String is immutable. Okay, tuple is immutable, but list is mutable. Okay, so that you have to keep in mind. In general, in interviews they ask this type of questions, that which one is mutable and which one is immutable, and what do you mean by actually mutable and immutable. So that point should be clear to you also, that mutable means a particular element of that data type you can change, then it will be called mutable data type. If you can't change element, a particular element of that data type, then it will be immutable. Okay, so string and tuple are immutable, and list is mutable data type. So next we are going to discuss about, however, an element of a tuple may be of mutable type, list. So you can use a list as an element. Okay, you can use an element. Okay, a list as an element of a tuple, and in that list you can change. Okay, so let me tell you that what actually I mean to say, that you can take a, you can take a, is there any message? Okay, so you can take a tuple like that we have taken, in which we have, so let me show you what we have in tuple 3. So in tuple 3 what we have, first element is 1, second element is 2, and third element is, okay, is a list that contains 10 comma 20. So third element is itself a list. Okay, that we can do in tuple. So let me tell you that a particular element you can't change, but if this element is a list, so list is mutable, that's why you can change the element of this list. So let me show you that if you will try to do tuple 3 and for example index number 0. So index number 0 we will have 1. So if you will try to change this with 5, so that will not be allowed and you will get error. Okay. So that's so simple. But if you want to change the element of this list, that you can do. But complete list you can't change, like tuple 3. And what will be the index number for this third element? Okay. At which we have a list. So what will be the
Two.
index number? It will be 0, 1, 2. So it will be 2. So if you will try to change it with another list, for example, if you want to change it with 15 comma 25, so particular element you want to change, that is not allowed in tuple. Okay, particular element, because this list is element, so element wise change is not allowed. So of course you are going to get error for this. Okay, next thing let me tell you, but this element is a list. Okay, so this element is a list and list is mutable. That's why you can change element of this list. Complete list you can't change, but element you can, this element of this list you can change. So let me try to do this thing. Tuple 3, and then we have what? Index number 2. So index number 2 means we want to represent this third element, but this third element, whole element cannot be changed, but a particular element of this list if we want to change, for example 0. So this next 0 within bracket indicates which one? Indicates the first element of this third element, the this list. So it means 10. So that we will try to change and we will try to put it as 15. So that will be allowed. Okay, so that is a technical point that you have to understand, that after that if you will print your tuple 3 elements, then you will find that this element or this first element of your list, okay, actually that is third element of your tuple, that has been changed. Okay, so that is because your third element is a list. Okay, and a list is mutable, so you can change a particular element of that list. But if you will consider this list, whole list, as an element of a tuple, that you can't change. Okay, so that is a technical point that you have to keep in mind, because they may ask you that you will get an error for this one or not. Okay, this type of question they may ask. Or I hope you got this point. Next we have tuple operations. So same concatenation we will discuss, then we will go for repetition. So repetition is allowed, and membership, it means in and not in. So these operations are similar to the things that we have discussed, operations for a string, operations for a list. Okay, so same type of things we can do for concatenation. For concatenation, if you will use plus symbol, so it will simply merge to the elements of two tuples. And for membership you can use this in operator. It means if you have a tuple in which you have, for example, these three elements, red, green and blue. So if you will check that green, this string green in tuple 1, so of course it is there, so you will get true. Okay, but if you will check that green not in tuple 1, because green is there in tuple 1, so if you are checking with not in, so not in is a membership operator, so not in, so of course you will get false. Okay, so if you are sure that you are getting these points, then I will not go in detail. Okay, because concatenation, repetition and membership are something like that that we have discussed already for list and string. So can we go move forward?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So next we will come to slicing. So slicing will be also same, okay, as we have for lists and strings. So if you will write some portion in slicing, for example, tuple 1, 2 to 7 you are writing. So it means index number 2 element at index number 2 will be printed, then 3 will be printed, 4 will be printed, 5 will be printed, 6. Okay. So element at index number 6 will be printed, but in element at index number 7 will not be printed. Okay. So same thing that we have discussed for list and string, same type of thing will be followed. Okay, in terms of slicing for tuples also. So if you want to check I will provide you these examples in tutorial notes so that you can check. Okay. So this negative indexing also you can use in slicing also, and for reversing a tuple you can use this thing, colon colon and then -1. If you will write, then it will reverse the elements of your tuple. Okay, so these are the things actually that are applicable for list and string also. So same type of thing we can apply in tuple. Next we have tuple methods and built-in functions. So there are few built-in functions that we have the for tuple manipulation. So we will go for those functions. So of course first one will be len. So what len will return? Actually the number of elements in your tuple. Okay, so that's so simple. Then there is a method named tuple. Okay, so its name itself is tuple. So tuple will be used to create an empty tuple. If you want to create a tuple, okay, so that you can use, or if you will provide some sequence, okay, so that will be elements of that tuple. So let me show you that how we can use this function tuple. For example, if you want to use tuple function, so this is a tuple function, this is tuple function. If you will not provide any value, okay, within this bracket, then it will be a simply empty tuple. So t1 will be an empty tuple. Okay, so if you will check that what we have in t1, so you will find that there is nothing in t1. And if you will check what is the type of t1, then of course it should be a tuple. Okay, so if you can create empty tuple with the help of this tuple function, and if you are sure that you have few values, for example t2, so that you can provide whenever you are using this tuple function. For example, if we are sure that 1 2 3 we want to put in t2 tuple, then also you can do tuple 1 2 3 tuple expected at most one argument got 3. Okay, so let me try to do that. That if we have t2, and then we will use this tuple function, and then we will use 1 2 3 4 5. Then let me check that what we are getting. Int object is not iterable. Okay, so t2 is equal to tuple, and then for example 1 we are going to put only. Int object is not iterable, so I'm not able to get that why we are getting error. So let me check that create a tuple if a sequence is passed as argument. Okay, so if we will, okay, if we want to put some values as elements of that tuple, then we have to use a sequence. Okay, directly elements we can't write. So sequence if you want to write, it means a list or a string you can use. Okay, so we will use in that way. So that we have to take care whenever we are going to use this tuple function. So t2, and if we want to create this tuple t2 with tuple function, okay, otherwise you can write directly within braces, but if you are using this tuple function, then you have to use these values as a list, because this will take a sequence only. So 1 2 3 is a list, that is a sequence data type, so that you can provide as an argument. Okay, so 1 2 3. So now if you will run this and then you will check this, then this 1 2 3 will be elements of this tuple 1 2 3. These elements of this list will be now elements of this tuple t2. Okay, that you can check now. Okay, so you got this point, I hope. Next we have and if you will put any string, so the characters of that string will be elements of that tuple. So that also we can try, that if we want to create a tuple t3 and then tuple function we will use, and this string we will write, for example hello. Okay, so in that case actually if you will print the t3, so its elements will be the characters of this string, like h will be first element, e will be second element, l will be third element. So like that it will do HELLO. Okay, so I hope you got this point. So that you have to keep in mind that directly you can't put numbers as I was trying, okay, earlier. So you have to provide these numbers, okay, as a sequence. It means in terms of lists at least. Okay, so let me try that we can use a tuple okay, T3, okay, T3 or T4 is a tuple, okay, for example, and we want to use this tuple 1 comma 2 comma 3, because if you are writing 1 comma 2 comma 3 within braces, within small braces, so it will be treated as a tuple, and that you can provide in tuple function or not. So let me try this one, so that will also work. So any sequence you have to provide, okay, so it means it should be a tuple, it should be a list, or it should be a string. So like that you have to use. Let me check that what we have in tuple T4. Okay, so 1 2 3. So I hope you got this point. So directly numbers you can't write, okay, you have to provide those numbers or those elements, okay, as a tuple, as a string, as a list, okay. So next we will go to next function that we have count. So of course the name itself is telling you that it will return the number of times the given element appears in the tuple. So how many times that element, okay, occurs in that tuple, that you will get. So that's so simple, I think you can do this thing. Then index. So if you want to know the index of an element, okay, okay, first occurrence of the element in the given tuple, that you can check. So that we will try to do. For example, if we have T1, so let me check that what we have in tuple T1. Tuple 1 is empty. So what we have in T2, so T2 is 1 2 3, okay. So we will check that what is the index of 2. So T2 dot index of 2. So that we will check. T2 is our tuple, index is function, and we want to check index of value 2. Okay, index of this element 2. So that we will check. So index of value 2 is 1, because for 1 it will be 0, for 2 it will be 1. Index number will be 1. Okay. Next we have again sorted. So if you want to sort the elements, then you can use sorted. Then min, I hope you can get it easily, that min will provide you the minimum value among the elements of that tuple. But you have to keep in mind that you will not use this min function with dot operator. Actually min directly you will use, okay, because this T2 dot index, like that we will not use, okay. So min, max and sum we will use directly. That you have to keep in mind, whether you are using for list or whether you are using this for tuple. So min, and in that if you will write T2, then it will provide you the minimum value, that is 1. And if you will use for max, then T2, you will get 3, that is maximum value. And let me try for sum, then T2, so that you will get. So that's so easy. And you will find that if you know the basic functions for lists, so few functions are going to be repeated for tuple. So that's why you can practice these functions. Okay, I will provide you the list of functions in tutorial PDF file, okay, so that I will provide you. So this was about tuple. And there is one more thing that we should know about tuple, that you can directly assign a tuple to another tuple and its elements will be copied, okay, accordingly. So let me take an example. If you have, for example, values like a comma b, okay, and if you want to take it as a tuple, and for a you want to use value 10 and for b you want to use value 20, so this will be a tuple, and this 10 comma 20 within brackets or within parentheses if you are writing, so it will be a tuple. So if you are going to write like this, so 10 will be automatically copied for a, and 20 will be assigned automatically to b, okay. So this you can check. Now if you will check that what we have for a, then you can check what we have in a. A will have 10, and what we have in b, so b will have 20. So like that we can do. Next point is that tuple assignment that we discussed. So same we can do if we have name, roll number and subject. So directly we can provide values in the same order. Okay. So for example, if we have a tuple like name and roll number and marks, for example. Okay. You have name, roll number and marks. Then you can use directly values, so that will be same like 10 and 20. So what we will do first, that we will take one more cell here, and we will use it as a record 1, okay, or r1 we will tell this one. So r1 is a tuple that holds value for name. For example, we have name as Mohan. Okay, so the name of a student is Mohan. Roll number is, for example, 15, and marks is 85. Okay, so like that we can do. So this will be a tuple. Okay, so there is nothing typical in this one. R1 will be a tuple that will hold the values Mohan as first element, 15 as second element, 85 as third element. Now if you want to store these values accordingly, okay, in this record, in this tuple, name, roll number and marks. So what you will do, simply you will write r1. So the elements of r1 like Mohan, 15 and 85 will be copied, okay, automatically as per the sequence that you are going to take for this tuple. Like name, so Mohan will be copied to name, roll number 15 and marks will be 85. So that we can do. R1 is not defined. So where is R1? R1 is a tuple, but it is telling that R1 is not defined. Okay, let me check that why we are getting this error. R1, this thing, then okay, it should not give error. So let me check again that why we are getting error for this one. R1 is not defined. So first of all, we should try this thing, run that cell actually, then you will get that there will be no error. So why we got that error? Actually we missed to run this cell we missed to run, that's why we got error. Because until and unless you are going to run this cell, okay, till then you will not have this r1 as a tuple. So that's why it is showing that r1 is not defined. Okay, so first of all we will create this r1 which will have these values Mohan, 15, 85 as elements, and then we will assign this tuple to another tuple, and element wise it will be copied. So now if you will check that what we have in name, then you will find that name will contain Mohan, and for roll number you will have 15, and for of course marks you will have 85. Okay, so that will be copied accordingly. So that was the point. Next thing is tuple handling. So write a program to swap two numbers without using a temporary variable. So if you want to swap two numbers, okay, so then you can do it with the help of temporary variable. That first you will assign first number to a temporary variable, and then you will copy the value of first number to second number, and then in first number you will assign the value of second number, and then from temporary. So with the help of this temporary variable we can do it easily. I hope you will be knowing. But if you want to do this swapping without help of this temporary variable, then you can do it easily like that. If you will write, for example, num1 comma num2 is equal to num2 comma num1, it means it will be automatically copied. Okay, so that let me try that what we have in num1 and num2. So for that we will, first of all we will copy these two lines only, and we will try to understand that what we will get for these two lines. Okay, so num1 is what? Input enter the first number. So actually this will be displayed on your screen, that enter the first number. Okay, and whatever number you will type from your keyboard, that will be taken for input function. Okay, and that value, that number that you have provided will be converted to an integer, and then it will be stored to this variable num1. Same will be done for num2. So this is simply to take values from user. Okay, so I hope you are getting this point, that what you will get for num1 and num2 input, these are two functions that we will use So it will ask for two numbers, for example 10 we are going to put, second number is 20 we are going to put. So num1 will have 10 and num2 will have 20. And now if you will write num1 comma num2 is a tuple, so if you will treat it as a tuple, and you will write like num2 comma num1. Okay, so what it will do, num2 value will be copied to num1 and num1 will be copied to num2. So if you will run this, and after that if you will check that num1 will be having 20, okay, and num2 will be having 10, so that you can see that you can write this, you can do this swapping, okay, without help of any third variable or temporary variable. So I hope you got this point. Okay, so that you can do. Now there are some questions for practice that I will share, okay, with you. So this was all about tuple. Okay, so this was basic concepts of tuple that we discussed in today's session.